Commissions to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by invocation by Commissioner Dries. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, as we gather together, we ask your attendance at our commission meeting this morning, Lord. Guide us in our decisions. Be with us throughout this Lenten season, Lord, as we welcome your Savior and saving grace. We also want to give great thanks, Lord, for all the moisture we've received in this region. We really appreciate it. Please keep it coming. In Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. This morning, I'm going to take the liberty of a chair comment to advise the public of the lawyers in Garden City that are commissioners on the Finney County Law Library Board. In this year's fiscal budget, the court budget to the county did not include any funds for mediations. Mediations have proved very successful in avoiding jury trials. Average jury trial costs between $3,800 and $5,000 per case. And at the request of the court, without cost to the county, the Finney County Law Library trustees have established a fund of $25,000 for use in criminal mediations for 2024. From the chair, kudos to the Law Library trustees and to the court for utilizing these funds in assisting us holding down the costs of prosecution for jury trials. Mediation avoids trials, makes certainty of outcomes for both the defendant and the state, and assists all of us in making sure that justice is carried out swiftly and with a degree of certainty. Once again, thanks to the Board of Trustees of the Finney County Law Library, Judge Christy Cott as chief of our district court. Thank you very much. Next on is our consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'll offer a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now is the opportunity for public comment. Does anyone wish to address the commission this morning? Dory, did anybody address you this morning?
No, sir.
Right. Now might be a really good time for you to remind the public about registration requirements and upcoming presidential preference primary.
Yes, so as a reminder, Finney County will be conducting an election on March 19th, 2024. This election is a presidential preference primary election. In order to vote in that election, you must be registered, and today is the last day to register to vote. Today is also the last day to apply for a ballot by mail. Going forward, we'll be starting advance voting for this election on March 4th, and then election day, of course, is March 19th. One thing to note about this election this year is that mail ballots have to be returned to my office or to a polling location on election day, no later than 7 p.m. on election day. There is no 3-day grace period following the election, this election.
Yeah, and also, I understand that if you register for this election, you don't have to re-register again in 24 for the primary and the general election.
That is correct. That is correct. Thank you.
Any other board comments on the upcoming election? All right, very good. Hearing no public comment, we'll move into the business items. First up this morning, we'll hear from Lana Duvall, President of Finney County Economic Development Corp. Good morning.
Good morning. A few quick updates. We've been very busy. February is always a rough travel month in our office. So at the very end of January, beginning of February, we went to Dallas and worked at a retail trade show where we had the opportunity to speak to some national retailers, regional retailers about the opportunities available in Garden City. We had some really good conversations there and have already had some follow-up from those folks looking for property and asking about what opportunities we have traffic-wise, which for those of you that were at the annual meeting, you saw Shannon's report about how our traffic is more valuable. Even though we don't have as high a number of folks driving by a retail location, more of those folks actually stop and do business with those retailers. That information was really impactful for us to share with the retailers down there. Housing, we continue to make some strides there. Hunters Glen has several of their townhomes now available, and they're working to get those rented. I've been working with their development company that manages those properties, and we've helped them to get a little better visibility for those locations. But certainly, if you know anybody who is employed in the agriculture industry, pretty much in any aspect of agriculture, and are looking for housing, have them reach out, because Hunters Glen is a good opportunity for those folks. And if you haven't seen those units, you need to drive by there. They are really nice units, and we're very pleased to have those coming along. We've got an additional 200 units that will be built before that is at full development. So those should be starting probably within the next 60 to 90 days. Just got back from World Ag Expo, which is the International Dairy Show in Tulare, California. Milk prices have been pretty low, so the dairymen are a little pessimistic, I think would be a nice way to put it. So we didn't have a lot of really good conversations about relocations of dairies, but did have some good conversations with dairy service companies and dairy suppliers, which is also valuable for our region. We kind of grew the dairies first in the assumption that those service companies and suppliers would follow. So far, they've been a little slow to do that, but we hope that with the addition of another dairy plant, we'll have more opportunity to get some of those companies in, which helps our existing dairymen to do better. Legislative advocacy, I was in Topeka. I know many of you were in Topeka as well. As we all know, not a lot going on this session, but had some good conversations with some of the legislators from outside of our area, which is always valuable. They don't always know everything that we're working on out here, so it's always good to get to talk to them. And then we continue our work with the university system. Newman is offering some additional programming this semester at Garden City Community College, and working closely with K-State to add some additional programming that we think would be extremely valuable to our region, both in agricultural careers and in design and building. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I'm going to go first today. There's been some talk, at least in the newspaper and other folks covering the Capitol, of changes to RHID. What's, from an economic development point of view, do we need any changes in RHID, or should we stay with what we got?
I think we have to be really careful. You know, there's also been talk about changing how we can do TIF districts, and which is the business equivalent of the Rural Housing Incentive District. Anything that we do in those development tool programs just takes more decision making away from you as local elected officials, and we think that's not good ever. You know, we strongly support local control, just as you do. We feel like the folks who are closest to our citizenry have the most impact, and have, you know, our citizenry has the most access to you. So we would prefer that they not mess with those programs for obvious reasons. You know, the folks who are advocating for that say that the programs get abused, and that may be the case in some places, certainly not the case in the majority of places. So we would like to see those left to your disposal to use as you see fit. For growing communities, those development tools are absolutely imperative. If we didn't have the RHID program, if we didn't have the tax increment finance districts, you wouldn't see the growth that we've seen here over the last decade.
Very good. Other questions for Ms. DeVol?
Mr. Chairman, Lana, we hear about the number of housing units that we need, and the city's plan or expectation of 4,000 in such and such a year. And then at the last chamber breakfast, when they give the statistics on their little handout that they have each breakfast, It shows the number of houses sold and so forth. And then I saw either a text or a Facebook thing that said the average price that the multi-list sales is about 260,000 for the housing that they've sold. I realize in some of these, there's subsidized housing when you're talking about Hunter's Glen and so forth and so on. But can you give us a little better perspective as far as like what the average price of these townhouses might be versus single family, what the average prices might be? So that I use and have for several years used the phrase income appropriate, so that these houses of whatever number are income appropriate for the audience that we have in Finney County.
Sure. So a couple of things on that. The housing study that we conduct every 2 years, that's mandated in order to keep our RHID program current. That study for the past several years has shown that the demand in our community is all in the 200,000 and up for owner-occupied units, and for rental units, it's in the higher income categories as well. So one of the challenges we have is that right now, with interest rates where they are, private developers, market rate developers for rental housing are having a hard time making those numbers work, simply because of how high the interest rates are. So what we see the growth in is those housing units that are subsidized, for instance, Hunter's Glen with the USDA program. That's a challenge for us. It's really hard for us to find folks who qualify for most of the income qualified housing that comes through the federal programs. So we've relied heavily on the moderate income housing for the Sligo project. Those will be market rate apartments. But when it comes to just traditional building it and selling it to whoever can qualify for it, that's a little tougher to do right now. Again, the good news is the need we have is all in that higher range. The bad news is that it is going to require folks making the decision to move up into that housing that they're qualified for to free up the units they're in for the folks who are trying to get into the community and get established. So it's a bit of a two-edged sword there, but we don't really have much option except to continue with what can be built when it can be built. Again, maybe it's a benefit. We need all of it. So for us, at least we don't have to just stop and wait for things to correct in order to get back into the housing development scene. We're able to continue to move forward with anything we can build. There's definitely a demand for it. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
And Mr. Chairman, just an editorial comment. Having units is great, but if the units are out of the price range of our workers, it doesn't help us. So that's just in the context of my question.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Lana, can you give us a little update on your child care? How's that? They're up and running
They are, yes. They are up and running. The facility is absolutely beautiful, and we had no trouble recruiting the employees we needed, qualified employees, which is wonderful. There were a lot of folks available in the workforce who had left the childcare industry and were working in retail and support services, those types of things, and had the opportunity to go back to childcare when they saw that there was a high quality facility opening. So that's exciting, and the enrollment has gone well. I've been a little bit out of touch because I've been out of town for the last couple of weeks, so I don't know what the number of enrollment is right now. But we do plan to have an open house where you all can come and see that facility.
Are there plans to expand, or that facility or maybe other new facilities? There's people that have
Yes, great question. So there is room to expand that facility. Right now, there's only 4 classrooms operational, but there are 6 classrooms in that building. So we can add additional children at that facility. We're also, Hunter's Glen is working through the process right now with federal funding to help fund a community center within the Hunter's Glen community that would allow us to operate a childcare facility in there as well. And they've indicated that they would prefer to work that with the network as the lessee and manager of that childcare. So yeah, things are looking good on that front finally. The cost is high. there's no doubt. You know, it's it's not cheap to provide that childcare, but we do feel like there's things happening at the state level that will help to provide support for the families who utilize that care. So we'll continue building on that model. It just doesn't make any sense to try to charge less and put the center in peril. We've seen that happen over and over in our community, and it just simply isn't sustainable if you don't charge enough for the care.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Lana, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You want it?
Next on our agenda is to hear from Paul Resley, Emergency Management Director. And this is a follow-up to a declaration of an emergency that I made on February 8th, 2024, and asked for the full commission's support of that declaration.
Good morning.
Morning.
As you know, we had a wildland fire out here southeast of Pierceville. Started out about a half mile east of Pierceville Road and Parallel Road. Ultimately ended up burning about 600 acres, a little over. They believe it started when top of a Wheatland's power pole fell off due to the high wind the day before and then the arcing power lines. We had Gray County, Garfield, Grant, Holcomb, or Finney County Public Works, of course, the Garden City Fire and EMS out there, along with we had Bob Husband's group out there, John Kleistuber was out there, and then we had, can't say who all we had out there because we had some on the eastern side that was working on the east side of the fire. The reason we declared the emergency is because of some of the occupied dwellings. We thought we were gonna have to have aircraft. Fortunately, in the middle of the fire, we did not see it, but there was a circle in there that kind of slowed the fire down, so they were able to get it contained. It took about 3 hours to get it contained completely. So that's what we had. We had, I don't know how many farmers out there that had water trucks. I know we had at least 2 tractors in the field disking for us, and it helped. I mean, citizens come together again, as they always do, to help us out in any way they can, so.
Wonderful. Is there a motion to confirm the declaration of a state of emergency on February 8th, 2024?
I'll offer the motion, but may I ask a question first?
You may.
Paul, you're naming all of the fire departments that responded. Are you familiar with Lockport Township?
Yes. We didn't reach out to them that day. Some of this was made by command out on the field before, and Lockport. Pierceville also has a fire department, and they weren't available to respond as well. So we got what we could. It was pushing towards Gray County. So Gray County sent 3 trucks and 2 tankers over to us, as well as they were able to add a couple tankers from a couple local farmers from Gray County. But yeah, I'm very familiar with Lockport, so.
They have an outstanding
MOU with them.
equipment, just
Yep,
great.
yep.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I will happily offer a motion to approve resolution number what? 08-2024. Yeah, 08-2024.
And I would second that and authorize our chairman to sign.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I'll make sure you reach out to all the farmers and all the volunteers as best we can to tell them thanks.
Yeah, we have as best as we could. Good thing we didn't have to deploy the aircraft. We were able to get them stopped before they got up in the air, so. But they were there for us if we needed them. So. Thanks.
A short business items today, we turn to board governance and upcoming meetings. Dory?
I don't think I added anything new. I might have updated some of the legislative copies and such. I would point out that April is County Government Month, and we are planning an event, I believe, for the 19th, and once that's confirmed, I'll get that added in there, so.
I'd just like to point out to everybody at this point and remind everyone again, the commission will meet in special session on March 25th for the purposes of convening the Board of Canvassers with regard to the presidential preference election on the 19th. And the rules require us to make that canvass within 7 or 8 days of the election. So our regular sessions wouldn't fit with that requirement, so we will have a special session on the 25th.
At what time, Mr. Chairman?
8:30.
And Mr. Chairman, for information, I may or may not be here, but if I find that I cannot be here, I will have a name for you to then appoint, take my place
For the Board of Canvassers.
for the canvassers.
Very good. We have incident reports from the fire department. And who's here today? Please announce who you are and give us your update, please.
Kenny Smith with the Garden City Fire Department. Just here to go over just last month's stuff, just to kind of keep you guys in the loop is what this more entails. As you can see on the pie graph, from fires to overpressure rupture, it could be something like a gas leak, or because it doesn't say just gas leak, and so how it's put into our system, that was the best fit. Service call, good intent call. A service call could be gas leaks as well, or just regular fire alarms that either got canceled or just didn't amount to anything. So really, I will answer any questions if you guys have anything.
Everybody safe after the wildfire?
Yeah, it was a good one. I'd say good one. Good one in the fact that nobody got hurt, no equipment got hurt. There was one incident with Gray County. They had a passenger vehicle, one of their Tahoes out there, that got a bed frame or the bed spring wrapped up in its axles. That's about as much as happened. So with our new trucks, that kind of prevents a lot of that, which we're grateful for that. So
Yeah, I was curious, how did your new trucks operate for you? Were they up
very good.
to expectation?
Yep, very, very good. South of TB Road, we had to access some pasture land, so we had to cut some fencing and was able to go south into that. That's kind of where the head of the fire was at, and that's where it really stopped because there were some green wheat fields just south of that, which honestly probably saved more than anything. It wasn't very windy, but it was breezy enough and it was dry enough that it just burned hot. It really did. So
Fuel out there.
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of fuel.
Fuel is really high this year.
Yes, it is. So no, it was a good fire for everybody to coordinate with and really work with our surrounding communities. You had mentioned about which one? Which township? Lockport. I know it was talked about with the BC that was on scene, and he felt that we had enough as far as Gray County, Garfield, and Grant County there, that we didn't feel like we needed more. But it was on the talking point that we would have called them in if we couldn't get it contained. So
Reason I mentioned them, Kenny, was when ConAgra burned. Chief Shelton was wanting tanker trucks, and I was county emergency manager, so I was trying to find him water, and Lockport Township called, and they had a tanker, but they also had a pumper that they brought to the scene, and when they rolled in, everybody was so deeply impressed. This is
Yep.
a little township, and they had beautiful equipment, so.
yeah, it was talked about. It just, we had an overabundance. We had people, private citizens coming in with tankers and stuff too. So it was talked about. I assure you.
Mr. Chairman, Kenny, we appreciate everything you guys did and all the others who responded to that fire. And Paul alluded to the on-site command and so forth. It seems that coordination worked very well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so the bigger the fire, grass fire, we kind of split up the command. And so we have, in this instance, we had like a west side command and an east side command, just to split up, because you start talking about incident command and talking about how many people somebody can command. And so we split it up and it worked very, very well. So that's something that we have had in the past with Quarter Horse Fire and the fire at 50 and Towns, to where we feel like we have a lot to learn still, but we're getting more and more efficient with it all, especially on that command structure level.
Thank you.
And not to toot his horn, but Paul is doing a very good job.
Oh, you are doing his horn.
Must be evaluation time or something.
Commissioners, anything else? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We'll hear from Mackenzie Phillips on our development update.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Mackenzie Phillips, Development and Administrative Coordinator. So I have just a few updates for you this morning. The first one is for Western Kansas Corridor. Just wanted to give you an update on the shoulder work that they're doing. They did start working again last week. And so we went out there towards the end of the week and they were just getting started. So this week they're going to be finishing up the Western Kansas Corridor shoulder work, and then once they're done, we'll go out and inspect it again and see if it's up to the standards that we need before we can bring it before you to accept the infrastructure. So along with that, Country Acres is also finishing up their road shaping. They did a few compaction tests. It was either last week or the week before, and everything came back great. So they're finishing up the rest of the road shaping there, and then they'll start laying gravel. There are a few designs that were approved for those road shapes that we are going to be talking with them just to probably get a few changes for, but it shouldn't hold up things too much. And then also within the information that I provided you for the development update, there is a memo in there and a letter from the city for an update on the annexation of Jenny Barker Road. So just to give you a refresher, this was back in November of 2022, the city did annex the east portion of a portion of North Jenny Barker Road. And on August 21st of last year, it was brought before you to approve a formal request to the city of Garden City to annex the west portion. So on January 16th of this year, the board, or the governing body of Garden City approved a resolution to establish the date and time of a public hearing to consider the annexation of the west portion of Jenny Barker Road. And the reason why you are receiving this notification, and they're also required to notify the property owners and the planning commission, is because the land that the road is on is actually not owned by the county. The right-of-way is owned by the county, and then also the road itself, or that east-west portion. But since the land is not, they have to notify those property owners and also go through the notification of notifying the Board of County Commissioners and the Planning Commission as well, which it did go before the Planning Commission last week.
And what the planning commission said.
I actually had to leave early from that meeting, so it was just more of them notifying the Planning Commission.
And that's what, Mr. Chairman, I was also in attendance, and that's what was being done as we exited the meeting. They were just simply being informed about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So my last update is for the discussions with the city for the agreement for the services provided by Neighborhood Development Services. So we did meet with city staff on February 7th of this year to go over the drafts that have been submitted by both the city and the county. And then right before that meeting, we did, the county did give them updates for our red line document. The day before that, the city did present to the city commission a consultant type agreement, which after our discussions the next day, we're relooking at that. So that will not be coming to you. That agreement should not be coming to you. It should be a different agreement once we continue the discussions. But we should be meeting with them, or we are going to be meeting with them again this week to continue those discussions.
I'm gonna go backwards just a little bit. Mackenzie, the public hearing on the annexation is March 19th at 1:30 in the city commission chambers.
Correct.
If the public has any desire to attend, I just wanted to make that announcement.
Yes, and it's March 16th, I believe.
16th, isn't it?
Well, what I'm looking at on the notice says March 19th, 2024 at 1:30.
Okay.
That'd be the Tuesday.
Yep, it would. You're right. So I apologize for that typo.
Well, I also could be wrong. It is March 19th though, right?
I believe so, if it says that within that. Yes.
I think we have a bit of a typo somewhere between what was provided to us and what is in the actual resolution.
Yeah, yep.
The resolution says March 19th at 1:30.
And it would be 19th then. Okay.
So if the public wants to attend, it's March 19th over at the city office with regard to the annexation of the west side of Jenny Barker Road.
Correct.
From my perspective, the public, if they don't know, title to these county roads remains with the landowner. The county has a right-of-way. Landowners pay taxes to the middle of the road. All you have to do is ask one of these farmers how much taxes they pay for our roads. So it's a very good idea and legally required that those landowners be notified that the city's going to annex that ground. So it's material to those landowners.
Mackenzie, this annexation is from Schulman north to Mary?
It's from Mary up north to right by that drainage ditch.
That's on north, okay.
Yeah.
All the way up to Rodkey, isn't it?
Okay.
It's not quite all the way up to Rocky. There's a map within your packet. You can, Sam, do you mind scrolling down to that? It's towards the end.
It's page 61, I believe.
Yeah, there you go. So it's from that, right where it goes north from Mary all the way up to that drainage ditch that's up there. I believe that's a drainage ditch.
All right, continue. Do you have anything else,
That's all I have for you. If you have any questions for me.
commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you.
Please don't go anywhere. We want to include you in an executive session. We're going to meet with our council. All right. Sales tax report. Madam Treasurer, please announce.
Good morning. I'm Trista Joyce, County Treasurer. So in front of you, you do have an overview of sales tax collected by Finney County in 2023. So Finney County does levy a total of 1.3% in sales and use tax in the county. So these are all countywide sales tax initiatives. Keep in mind that all countywide sales tax initiatives are collected and distributed to both the county and cities based on assessed valuation and population. So the county does not just receive all funds from this, the cities do as well, both the city of Garden City and city of Holcomb. So of that 1.3%, 0.5% is for the general operations of the county. 0.25% is allocated for infrastructure improvements and property tax stabilization. That does include the new health and EMS facility that is in the works. 0.25% is allocated towards the building and road maintenance program, which does include the payment for the financing of HVAC improvements to the county administration building, the courthouse, and the county attorney building. And then 0.3% is remitted to the city of Garden City for the purpose of interlocal projects, which include improvements to Jenny Barker Road and K-156, construction and operation of a third fire and EMS station, construction of an indoor shooting range, and improvements to Lee Richardson Zoo. So after that, you'll find a breakdown of where those different taxes are deposited. So in 2023, we collected a total of $7,294,879.87. So that is a decrease from 2022. However, there was an abnormally large collection in February of 2022. So when those numbers are normalized, we anticipate an increase of about 4% over 2022. So following that, you will find some trend information on sales tax as collected. And then after that, you will find information on different ballot initiatives and resolutions relating to these sales taxes, as well as the annual report from the Sales Tax Oversight Committee in relation to the 0.3% joint project sales tax. And I will let Commissioner Schultz speak to that.
All right, the annual report indicates that all sales tax funds collected from the mandate of the citizens were properly accounted for through the work of the Sales Tax Oversight Committee, which exists by an interlocal agreement between this board and the City of Garden City's Commission. We have completed Jenny Barker Road improvements, and the lightage there should be reestablished in a short period of time. It's on now. And that's wonderful news. As soon as they got the lights up, then we had an accident, and then it was a period of time that before we could get the lightage back established. So the only remaining project under that 2017 30-cent sales tax is the fire station number 3, which includes the EMS portion of that fire station. Not happy to answer any questions from the rest of the commission with regard to the work of the Sales Tax Oversight Committee. All right. And I would also like to point out for everybody that once again, we were over $1 billion in sales in Finney County in 2023. That's an incredible number, which shows the diversity and hard work of economic development. It shows the hard work and industry of people who've come to our town to build businesses and trade here, and the hard work of, I think, many of you, the public and the people involved in government, in creating a business-friendly environment in our town. And we should continue to improve rather than stand idle. Thank you.
Thank you.
County Administrator, sir?
Yes, sir. We had a meeting last week with the community college on a couple of projects coming up. You'll need to stay tuned for that. Moving forward on the sewer district for creation of that district. Also met with staff on looking at options for the fairground parking lot. As you are aware, it's seeing better days. So we will be looking at options, engaging the county engineer on that to get some thoughts and bring them back to the commission on that project. Met with Alan Richardson. If you recall, Alan Richardson is the jail programming consultant. Met with him via phone, Teams meeting last week. He'll be joining us this week and the following week on the LEC project. And sewer modernization project is, we're waiting on the bonds on that, and we'll, after we receive that, we'll have the pre-con meeting to get that project going. This week, we do have, once again, the LEC meeting Wednesday, and Health EMS phone call on Thursday. Questions?
Commissioners? Well, just the view from 30,000 feet is the LEC continues to be a point of concern amongst many people in the community, and also our sheriff and city police department. Commissioner Drees, you're chair of that committee. Do you have any comments?
We did have quite an interesting meeting on the 13th, I believe it was. We got the hard numbers in for what our original consultant, pretty good hard numbers. It's kind of a sticker shock, I believe. So we're going down some other avenues, which is Mr. Alan Richardson is going to be visiting with us. More options. We have not given up on this project by any means, but we're going to look at every angle we could look at. And I expect a pretty interesting meeting tomorrow afternoon. This is the next step on alternatives to what we can do for our LEC problem. And we'll keep moving forward in that direction. It'll be a good meeting tomorrow afternoon.
Look forward to your report next time we meet. Anything else?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions for the administrator? All right, well, then we'll move on to department monthly reports. Do we have any of those? I don't believe so. All right, very good. And County Counselor, do you have a report?
Still looking towards doing the tax sale as far as that goes. I have put in a message to the courts to see if there's any update on when those will be fully functional so that we can get good title. Haven't got a response back from that, although I can say, at least in my personal private practice, I've seen more and more of the cases that were filed during that time getting online. So they are making some progress in getting towards that. I do have everything ready on the front end as far as demand letters, so those are ready to go. I just need to change the date at the top of them that they'll be sent out as soon as we can start that, and we'll start the process with the title company of doing those title searches as soon as that starts. So hopeful that we can get that going sooner rather than later. Obviously, have maintained contact with the treasurer's office for anybody who actually has come in and paid it during this time. There have been some that have paid, which is good. And just as a reminder to anybody who has those still sitting out there unpaid, now's the time to get that taken care of so that we don't have to go through this tax sale process for them. Do have a couple of matters I'd like to talk about in executive session that fall under the attorney-client privilege.
All right, and what's the length of time for the session?
I would say 20 minutes.
And who needs to participate?
Would ask that the administrator, the assistant administrator, and Mackenzie Phillips from development all participate in that session.
Are you ready for that executive session now?
Yes.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman. We'll start at 15 after the hour. That would give everybody 2 minutes to get over there, 3 minutes if that clock's right.
And then we'll be back in session at 9:35.
5.
And I would second the motion with the participants that council recommended.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We'll be in executive session. We'll reconvene at 9:35. regular session. Is there a motion to go back into regular session?
There is, Mr. Chairman.
A second?
And I would second that with the same participants and up to 15 minutes.
All right, we'll first go back into regular session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Sorry, I didn't mean to put time. Yeah.
No worries.
I got ahead.
And I will confirm for those who are watching and present that no action was taken. However, we need additional time with meeting with our counselor on attorney-client matters. A motion for an additional 15 minutes.
That's where I got ahead of myself, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. And for up to 15 minutes with the same participants as we've had previously.
Second.
Multiple second in stereo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll be coming back in 15 minutes at 10 till.
Saving time.
Are we ready to start back into regular session?
I move we reopen the regular session, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I will confirm for the public that no action was taken during this attorney-client privilege consultation. The next item on our agenda is county commissioner reports, and a little bit out of order today, but I'm going to start with Commissioner Pishney, who also wants to give a report on his trip and work to Topeka. Commissioner Pishney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I had that on. I guess I did. Yes, I did, and in the spirit of full disclosure to the timekeeper here at our desk, I will be going over my time this morning, so
You're on the clock. You wasted 10 seconds already.
I just wanted you to get started and know I will be going over. The county day at the Capitol, I'll speak to first, was very successful, I believe, again. I had a few less tables for various counties represented around the rotunda, but Finney County was there, Chase County, some individual counties were there, but a lot of the associate groups to Kansas Association of Counties, Sheriff's Association, clerks and so forth were also represented. And as the legislators walked through the rotunda, and particularly I think it's important as some of the staffers for these legislators walked through there, it opened their eyes a little bit more to county government, to local government. And that leads me into a couple of things that I was called on to do while I was there. There's Senate Bill 373, which there's some thought that it may not go anywhere, but it's a troubling bill. And Larry alluded to it on Saturday at our at the Chamber Legislative Coffee, because it's a bill to not allow any local government, whether it be city, county, whatever, to pay for a lobbyist to represent our interests. And it would affect economic development, it would affect CVB, it would affect Extension District, it would affect any of those entities that are receiving funds, public monies from us, from the city, wherever. And it was brought to the Federal and State Committee, Federal and State Affairs Committee in the Senate by American for Prosperity. What's most troubling about it is there's so much misinterpretation, even what public funds are. They got off into the weeds about public funds. So the reason I was drawn into that is our people at KAC had to be in Washington, and we're already booked to be in Washington, D.C. for the NACO Federal Legislative Committee, and the process with providing testimony is if you want to testify verbally, you have to provide written testimony. Jay Hall had already provided written testimony, but he couldn't be there to speak verbally. I didn't have the means to provide any written testimony, so he asked the committee for me to stand in his place for the verbal testimony. So on Monday of last week, I did so. And it allowed me the opportunity not only to reinforce his written testimony, but also to point out to the committee that we've got KLPG out here, we've got other entities out here that are, it's hard for us to be in Topeka and monitor all the activity. And so we stressed the importance of having that representation on a daily basis in Topeka. And fortunately, Senator Reichman's on that committee, and he asked the appropriate questions on where are these lobbyists getting their directions? And I was able to respond to his questions. It comes from us, the elected officials in local government. They are representing us according to our legislative policies and so forth. So I hope we've shut that down, but I don't know, and you never know until the gavel they gavel out of session at the end of the session. There were a couple of other things. There was another one I sat in on the hearing that would affect us as local governments. It's Senate Bill 468, and it prohibits cities and counties that grant economic development property exemptions, industrial revenue bond property exemptions, or use tax increment financing, which you heard our Economic Development Director reference, from exceeding the revenue neutral rate in tax year 2026. It means if any of the public funds, if any of the public entities are using any of those tools, which you heard our director say a minute ago, without these tools, with these tools, we've been able to advance and so forth, and I think the chair appropriately said a little bit ago, we're able to improve versus standing idle. That would be hindered, if not eliminated, by this bill. And it's a complete rewrite of a section of the bill, 5I. So that one's very troubling. That was brought to the Senate Committee on Assessment and Taxation by the chair of the committee.
You can name her.
Yeah.
Senator Karen Tyson. So that one we're monitoring very closely also as KAC and our lobbyists with KLPG, our Kansas Commissioners Association. So lobbyists, revenue neutral, some of those things are very concerning to us. Again, by some of these chairs in Topeka, there's an anti-local government temperament, and that's part of what I pointed out in my testimony on just simply one bill was local government is closest to the people. I said, in our case, I get my instructions from the coffee group, from the people who come to these meetings, from the people who come to our hearings, and that's where I get my, and the ballot box. That's where I get my instructions. So that's the message I try to convey each and every time I'm asked to speak there. And then lastly, from a legislative thing, there was I don't remember the House committee, and I don't know the bill number, but there was a House bill to to approve new incentives for big tech data centers. And here's my concern about it, and I haven't had time to really research it and find out what it's about. But the bill, which was first introduced last year, would exempt data centers from state and local sales taxes for at least 30 years and possibly indefinitely. Well, my problem with that is we use sales tax monies here, as has already been mentioned, but also when you take away sales tax, you're shifting the tax burden again to another source, and usually it's property tax. And on the other hand, the state is saying to us, you need to, in the local entities, lower property tax. So how are we supposed to do that when they keep putting exemptions on the books? So that one, 30 years is a long time, but indefinitely is even a longer time if they would exempt the sales tax for that purpose. So that's just one example. There's many others where they're wanting to add exemptions and then challenge us to lower property tax after an exemption's been put on the books. So that's the gist of my references today, Mr. Chairman, with regard to legislative action. And yes, they are in turnaround time this week. They are also going to be looking at veto override of the tax bill and so forth this week. And they're hoping to be out of session by the first part of May, if at all possible.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jones.
As Lon alluded to, the bill that I brought up at the coffee on the use of public funds for lobbying, it it's one of those bills that sounds like a really great idea, but if you start thinking it through a little bit, it's detrimental to anybody that lives in western Kansas, because it takes us hours to drive to Topeka. They don't think that, but it does. And if I was a commissioner in Morton County, I'd really be up in arms, because it is a long way from Morton County to Topeka. And those kind of bills, they just show up, and they're bad ideas, and hopefully we'll get it headed off. Other than that, about the only thing I did was attend the coffee for the legislatures. It is interesting to listen to them and talk to them.
I would second and third that from so far those reports. The legislative coffee is sponsored by the Garden City Area Chamber of Commerce, and those dates and times are published on their websites, and I would encourage the public to attend. It's a wonderful opportunity for the chamber to get to know you, and secondly, to hear directly from the legislators. The question and answer part of it sometimes can be cumbersome, but it gives people the chance to address their elected representatives at the state level. Commissioner Jones.
Very little to report, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting of the Committee on dealing with parks and recreation alcohol tax distribution, and that'll be on our next agenda. I understand we have a recommendation. And then secondly, I also attended the legislative coffee on Saturday. That's it.
Commissioner Dries.
Most of my meetings are upcoming this next week, so I don't have anything to report on those, and I already gave my LEC comments, so no further report.
All right. The report that I have, other than taking your time on the law library issue, was legislative coffee and also my committee assignment to Compass Area Mental Health. And Compass continues to grow and expand, incredible growth, and we still have incredible growth coming to the tune of probably as many as 45 new employees here in 2024. Same-day service for area mental health, as discussed in previous committee and commissioner reports, is something new and dramatic. We have a child's crisis center here in Garden City, have an adult center over in Dodge City, all made possible by the folks who pay the taxes and for those who are using the services, and under the stewardship of the Area Mental Health Board. My last comment is with regard to our showcases. On February 5th, I believe, we had a showcase at the 3I building, was attended by 275 students. Very well attended. We have another large showcase planned for March 8th, and upcoming on our agenda when the time comes will be a renewal for request to fund the showcase projects by those folks and the administration of the money with regard to us using the superintendent's fund for the showcases. Joe Coles, Bob Kreitzer, those people deserve some kudos as we try to build our workforce from within, and workforce development is one of the Chamber's keystone legislative items in their program that we got to review last Saturday at the legislative coffee. Last year, this commission funded and sponsored the beginning of those showcases in the amount of $50,000, and when I looked at the remaining money in the ARPA funds, we have sufficient funds to redo that again this year. It'll be required all of the commissioners to agree, along with the administrator's recommendation on the use of those ARPA funds. With that, I don't have anything further on commissioner reports. Next commission meetings are March 4th and 18, and we have our special session on the 25th, all commencing at 8:30 a.m. We are going to adjourn the regular session and begin a work session with all those here gathered. Appreciate everybody's patience as we've worked through our agenda this morning. A motion to adjourn. Commissioners?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.